tonight?
Good.
And
Doing
let's,
good, doing good.
all right. So there's been a number of different things that have been coming up on calls. Oh, by the way, let's get important things set up. First of all, happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm not wearing my green. I realized that a little too late. But happy St. Patty's Day to all of you. At the same time, I hope that you are all doing well. I hope all your family members are safe and doing well with this crazy thing that's happening, going all over the world. Even though thankfully it hasn't been spreading like what we've seen in the past with like other, like the swine flu and H1N1 and things like that, that were pretty rampant. Hopefully sooner or later, toilet paper stock will be back to normal inventory levels soon. Anyway, so I wanted to make sure we touch base on that. I hope you're all doing well. I know for us, it's been a little extra chaotic. All my kids are back home. My oldest, who is a teacher, his school shut down, so everybody's home. So we've got a full house, literally. And, you know, we're just taking it day by day, as I'm sure most of you are. But I do want to talk about the MEC deal, because one of the things that we've been taught in, you know, over the last few years was the ability to take people who have large sums of money and put it into a MEC and migrate it over to a Patriot. And one of the things that always gave me a little bit of pause, being a numbers guy, excuse me, is the fact that when you take money out of your MEC, it's a LIFO environment. LIFO is as an accounting term, stands for last in, first out. So what you do is you wind up taking money out of the MEC, but you're going to have to pay a tax on it, because a MEC is a modified endowment contract, the thing that we try to avoid with the Patriot, and we do a very good job at that. But when you have a large sum of cash, or what a client does, you got to think about what the alternatives are. The alternatives, for the most part, are to stick into a bank CD or something like a bank environment, which is, I guess you could say, perceived to be stable and safe, which that is questionable. The other alternative is to stick it into a money market account, which a money market account is typically short-term corporate bonds, very, very safe environment. But the return or rate of return on those two types of vehicles is really rather low compared to other options. Another option, speaking of other options, is to put the money into a mutual fund, even let's say a bond fund. And bond funds can average, you know, in the 80s and the 90s, when I used to sell them, 8%, give or take. Now I think they're right around the between 3 and 5%. But now all of those environments are not tax-free. So if you put your money into a CD, and let's say you have $100,000 and you got a 1% return, that's $1,000, right? And what the bank is going to do is they're going to send you a 1099 to claim that $1,000 the next year on your taxes. So the return on that is actually less than 1%. If you put it into a money market account, could be the same thing. There are the differences depending on, is it a realized gain, unrealized gain? I'm not going to get into all that right now, but those returns are still somewhat small compared to another option. If you went to a bond fund, and let's say you're able to get 4%, bond funds are not guaranteed. Okay, they are funds that trade in different types of bonds. Now there are high yield bonds, which I would never suggest, because they're also known as junk bonds. But those are high rates of return, but questionable companies being dealt with. Then there's government bond funds, which is one I used to sell quite a bit of. And, you know, it's, you know, T-bills, T-bonds, T-notes, that sort of thing. And those rates of return are somewhat low, but pretty much very comparable to what we experience in the Lafayette type environment or the Security Mutual environment. However, when you put it into a fund like that, you're going to get hit with a front end load. unless you do all of the research on your own and find a fund that does not have a front end load. But good luck with that, because there are literally thousands and thousands of mutual funds. So for instance, one time I moved a client's money into a Franklin fund, and that Franklin fund had a low upfront load of 4.25%. So if they put $100,000 in, the load was 4.25% off that, which was $4,250. Okay. So that means the $100,000 that was put into the fund is reduced by what the front end load was. And that goes to pay fees and commissions and things like that. And the only thing the client gets when they do that is they get a reduced amount of value, but they get nothing in return. A MEC, as you're going to see tonight, we're going to walk through a couple of different things. A MEC is a place to get the type of stability and safety that you want. It gets you a place where you're going to get a really good rate of return, north of 3.5% after tax, guaranteed. Okay. And that's because we're going to look at it's not including the dividend. We'll get into that in a little bit. But it also takes every dollar that you put into the plan and increases that dollar's estate value by 50 to what we're going to see as much as 500% of the estate value that each dollar in the plan represents. We're going to go through that in a few moments. Before we go, I don't know if we have some folks that had a couple questions. So why don't we go ahead?
I have a question.
Yes.
Janina.
Hi, Janina.
Yeah, hi. With the MEC and the Patriot 2020, and also I guess with the Liberty, of course, I just took the anti-laundering course.
Yeah. Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
The answer to every question is no, I'll never do that.
Right. But so does that open it up for people who are into, wanting to launder their money? What do we do?
The same thing is that basically when it comes to AML or anti-money laundering rules, it's really a matter of where are those funds coming from. I've talked to people who've sold their homes and had the funds from the sale of their home available. People who were forced to take distributions out of their retirement plans where they had lots of money and now they got this lump sum they don't know what to do with. So when it comes to anti-money laundering, what you're focused on is the source of the original funds.
Right. Okay.
So, like I had a guy, this is really kind of funny. This is going back a number of years when I first started working with the private family banking stuff. And I had just taken the AML training like a week before. And I get a guy from Florida, Miami, Florida, who calls me up and he starts asking me questions like, well, if I put all this money in, how quickly can I get it out? And we didn't even do a consultation. It was just him hammering me about how quickly he can have access to the funds.
Yeah.
Long story short, after a few different things, I realized, fortunately for me, we never reconnected because I had a small family emergency. It wasn't anything life threatening, but I had a family emergency that I had to request to reschedule the appointment that would have been his initial consultation. And his response to that was, I don't need to talk to you if I can't depend on you. And my initial thought on that was, let's see, you had some questionable questions and you're in a part of the, country where there's a lot of, potential drug deals going on. And I wasn't really too worried about it. So it's really, when it comes to the AML stuff, it's, if you're working with somebody who has, we collect at the application process, we collect their net income. Somebody has a $50,000 net income, but they have $500,000 in funds they want to try and work with. That's a red flag. So it's just a matter, Janina, mostly of, does it seem reasonable that this individual will have this type of money? And if they have a large sum of money and they, if it's from an inheritance, or a death benefit that was paid out, all of these things are reasonable, but we have to keep our spidey sense going, so to speak, to make sure that red flags are reported, and to always remember, it's not our job to do the investigation. It's just our job to tell Lafayette or Security Mutual that it didn't seem that, like, you know, Joe Schmo is starting a contract, and we just simply have to report to them that the circumstances surrounding these funds may seem questionable. And all we need to do is report that. It's up to them to take it from there, because the insurance company is going to do the investigation and they'll determine whether or not the funds were reasonable or not. We just have to say, you know, raise a red flag and make sure that the insurance company, most cases Lafayette, is aware of that, and let them do everything else. It's not up to us to render a judgment. It's just us to, it's kind of like see something, say something sort of thing.
Right.
Make sense?
So we take the application, but notify them.
Yeah, we can do so much, and just let them know. You know, in this case, it would be like with Lafayette, it would just basically be to tell Marcy, hey, Marcy, not too sure about this, but there's a couple of red flags about the source of these funds, and it might be a violation of AML. So I'm just passing that along. It's not our job to do anything but pass the information along.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
okay. But that's a good question, because you know what? The more I've learned about this stuff, the more I've realized, you know, I watch enough crime shows to know that money laundering, that people take a cut off of that. And if they could take a $500,000 in dirty money and put it into a MEC, and then, or put it into a whole life insurance policy and then take loans out against it, the 25 to 40% loss that they would experience is, I guess, I don't know, you know, other than just a speculation,
to them, it's the cost of doing
what they would get if they laundered the money to begin with.
Right.
So yeah, it's something that we do need to be aware of. Fortunately, in the 6.5, 7 years I've been doing this, give or take, I've only had one time that I had an eyebrow raised. I don't know if it's working. My eyebrow raised on one conversation, but the rest have been pretty straightforward. So, okay. So what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to show you essentially a presentation I did for a client last week, and how I presented this plan. And we're also going to look at an example of just a MEC alone, because I have another client that last week I sold them a Liberty. They had a large sum of funds come from an investment that they had, and they wanted to know where to put it. And it was around, I think it was $50,000. And now they're thinking now that some of the dust is cleared on their investment, that it might be 80. Okay. So what I'm going to do though tonight is going to take a look at a $500,000 lump sum. We're going to look at what a MEC alone would mean. So let's say you come across somebody who sold their home and they're in their retirement years, and they had a big home, they sold it, they had a lot of money, they downsized, and they have a $500,000 left over. And because they're using that one-time exemption where they don't have to pay taxes on the sale of their home or the equity profit that they made, what a $500,000 into a MEC contract would look like. So we're going to go ahead and take a peek at that. And let's see if I can figure this out. I think this one is it. Okay. So I gotta put this window over here. So what we're looking at is somebody who puts in a $500,000 into a Liberty contract. I will walk you through creating this. It's really quick and easy to do. You'll notice that the initial face amount is only $25,000. This is the key to minimizing the amount of base that we're putting in. So this guy's got a $500,000 and he puts it into just a MEC. He doesn't want to do anything like moving it from a Patriot, moving it from the MEC to a Patriot. It's just, I want to put the money in this account. Why would someone do this? Okay. So this, in this case, this is an individual who's 47 years old. He puts $500,000 in his first year, his net cash value is just under $488,000, or $12,000 less than he had to begin with. Why would someone consider this? Number one, if you're going to buy a mutual fund, then you're going to pay 4 or 5% or more on a front load, and you're going to get nothing in return. In this case, he is getting in return $1.75 million in death benefit. So he took a $500,000 and he increased the estate value of each dollar by $1.25 million, actually a little bit more. Okay. So he's got $500,000. If he puts it in the bank and he spends it, what's he got left? Zero. Here, if he puts it in the MEC and he spends it, what's he got left? $1.25 million. And that's happened if it happens in the first year. This is one of the biggest reasons why a MEC is a tremendous place to park large sums of money. Let's keep in mind, when it comes to large sums of money, taxes are definitely a consideration, but alternatives do not provide any more tax advantages than a MEC does. What a MEC provides is a whole heck of a lot in return for the little bit of money they pay up front. Percentage-wise, they get a huge advantage, meaning this guy could die he could spend $400,000 in his first year and die and still pay out $1.35 million to his family or his loved ones. When you look at the rate of return, now, when it comes to accessing the funds, so let's say this individual wants to put the money in his account into one of these, and he needs to use it for his business, which is a couple of gentlemen I'm talking with that have large sums of money. Their money has grown, their businesses have grown, and they're now thinking, what can I do with this money to give me advantages for my future? And so if he puts it into the MEC in year 2, let's say he doesn't borrow any money until year 2, he's got a $9,600 roughly gain by the end of year 2. So that's what he would have to pay taxes on. If he withdrew $50,000, this 9607, last in, first out, that's last in as far as interest and dividends earned. That's the first thing that comes out. So he'll get taxed on that. And if he's 47, he'll have to pay a penalty as well, right? 10%. So he'd pay 10% plus. If you max out, this guy's got money, you think he's probably in the 30% tax bracket. So he would have to pay 40% of this 9607 that was taken out. So the advantage there, however, is that this is paying for itself. And I'm going to show you, because when I first learned about this strategy, I thought, this makes a lot of sense, but everything that was presented to us back a while ago, and some of you who've been with us for a while have probably had the same thought. It was just, we looked at a MEC contract like this, and we moved over the money, and we saw the Patriot, which you're going to see a side-by-side comparison in a few moments. But we were looking at it going, but we don't know what's happening here with the penalties and taxes that the individual is paying. Tonight, I'm going to show you, I create a spreadsheet that there's a step-by-step process that takes about 10, maybe 15 minutes. And I'm going to show you how to move the money over considering taxes and penalties. And it will show you that it's a pretty powerful tool. I saw Dan raise his hand. Dan, go ahead.
Quick question for you. If he takes this as a loan versus a withdrawal, does that still impact that? I mean, can he still work within that same environment as we use like within a Patriot?
Yeah, if he takes the loan though, even in the lending process, the gain will always be taxed. So
even if he pays it all back?
He'll have to pay a tax on it.
Okay. So
this is why we try to avoid the MECs when we can.
Okay. Well, I was just wondering, because if he took out, let's say $50,000 in the way of a loan, and he paid it back over time, plus the 5% interest and so forth, he's still going to be taxed on $50,000. Let's say, whatever the number. He's only taxed on the amount above. I understand that. Yeah. So, right. So yes. Then when he pays it all back, then he comes down a couple months later and takes out another $50,000. They have to go back and recalculate that.
Yeah, the gain will change from year to year depending on what's in the account to begin with, which we'll walk through when I show you. If you've got a client that has 100, 200,000, whatever it is, I will show you how to walk through this process year by year. You have to do it, I think, like 6 times. And the spreadsheet makes it real simple to work with that I created for you. And you'll see in my example that we're going to look at in just a moment, that after he's migrated his money over into the Patriot after 7 years, he still has like $20-something thousand in this account that he could just let sit there. And I'll show you why you'd want to do that as well. But it more than pays for itself. and it takes each dollar and increases the estate value tremendously. And obviously that depends on how old the individual. We're looking at somebody who's only 47 here. If somebody's in their late 50s or early 60s, then the death benefit won't be as high because they'll be older. It's pretty simple. But still, I've seen in there was a 71-year-old, 72? No, excuse me, he was 74, almost 75. And the projections were he would add 50%. I think he was going to put $200,000 into his mech, and the death benefit was about $270,000 to $300,000. So even then, you could spend all the money in your mech or your Liberty and have a death benefit left over to pay, to leave behind for your loved ones. And the growth inside here, if he never touches this money, the growth will be tax-free. The growth happens tax-deferred. Unlike if you put it in a bank where you'll get a 1099 for the interest earned that year. That won't happen here. It grows tax-deferred, and the death benefit is paid out tax-free to the beneficiaries, to the loved ones.
Hey, Anthony, you said that it grows tax deferred. So if they die and it goes as a death benefit, is there still a tax in that?
Nope. The only time there will be a taxable event is when they actually access the funds either through a withdrawal or through a loan.
Okay.
But if they left it and let it sit there, then there will be no taxable event because the death benefit goes to the beneficiaries tax-free.
Tony,
And when they come,
borrow,
We have two people. Go, ladies first. Was that Janina or?
all right. If they borrowed it, would they still have to pay that penalty or just the taxes?
No, if they're under 59 and a half, you'll
Mhm.
pay a tax and a penalty, whether
If
you
they
borrow
it
or
too?
whether you
Okay.
borrow it or you withdraw the money from the account.
Okay.
Chris, go ahead.
is it a non-recognition loan?
Yeah.
And what about the upper end? You get penalized at 59 and a half. Don't you have to start pulling stuff out of an IRA at like 72?
Yeah, there's no required minimum RMDs on these.
Okay. So it is non-recognition though.
Yeah. So if he borrowed $50,000 here in year 4, paid the taxes, whatever he needed to pay, then the 50,000 still sitting there cooking. This is a non-direct recognition contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
So penalty and taxes is what he's got to be prepared to pay. And then the next year's net cash value is going to look like 579, 750.
Yeah. So,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
And the bottom line is that, again, we need to, I like to keep in my mind comparing this to the alternatives. So if he's taking money out of a 401k, that's all taxable, right? Because if he's, waited till he was after 59 and a half and he had a value at age 60 of $809,000, his basis is $500,000. So if he took out $100,000 out of this account, he would have to pay taxes on it. If he took out $100,000 out of a 401k, he'd have to pay taxes on it. So the alternatives are no different or provide no better options when it comes to this sort of thing. However, good luck trying to find a qualified plan that you could put $500,000 in 1 year. That's the thing that we have going for us is when it comes to our the alternatives, or what we would consider our competition. We don't have any caps on the maximum somebody could put in, aside from the fact that, there's that the maximum amount of insurance somebody can carry. I've only run into that, I think, 3 or 4 times. But then you just deal with it when you can. The average person is not going to have that problem. Someone in this case, though, if they have $500,000, they probably have a good income, and their income at this age, I think, is 20 times. I should say the cap on insurance, I think, is 20 times. 25 times. No, excuse me, 20 times the annual income. So people I'm talking to are making $150,000 to $200,000 a year, and this is money from their business. And well, if you're making $200,000 a year, you can have a $4 million death benefit, because 20 times 200,000 equals 4 million. and that falls well below this. So, okay. Now, this is if you want to leave it in the tax me now environment. What I'm going to show you is what happens if we move it from a tax me now to tax me never environment, where you can have the $500,000 migrated into a Patriot, where all those funds are tax me never. So what we'll do is we'll take a look at, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to have to do a new share. And I want to not share just, I want to share the whole screen. Okay. All right. So you should see two. Now, I apologize for the size being somewhat small. These numbers might be a little hard to read, but what you'll see here is on the left side, we have the MEC or Liberty, and on the right side, we have the Patriot, which is, this is tax me now. This is tax me never. You'll notice we've only started with $428,000, $428,005 in year one in the MEC, because we took $71,500 and we put it in an annual payment to start the Patriot. And I told both of the folks I'm talking to about this, I said, well, does this mean I get a commission on two different products? Of course it does. But I've reduced the commission as much as I can to make these numbers work for you. So question is, if the numbers work, does that matter? And both people have told me, no, it wouldn't matter. They think I deserve to get paid. And you know what? I think I do too, especially when we're talking about something like this. Okay. So let me bring up this little handy calculator I created for you. You'll see is that in this spreadsheet, what you want to do is you want to just type in how much does the individual have. So $500,000 is what we're working with here. That means the estimated Patriot premium is going to be 71 and change, and the MEC estimated MEC amount is 428.5 and change. I just then take this number and I round this to 71,500, and I round this to $428,500. Okay, now you'll see a bunch of numbers pop in. Don't worry about that. We're going to, what happened here? Total transfer is different, is wrong. This is supposed to be, oh wait, I know what I did wrong. No? Oh, well, let's not worry about this for now. I'll have to look at that spreadsheet and see where that wasn't the number was before I put it there. And then we say if this guy's going to be at a highest tax rate, put in 30% and then 10%. Okay. What we now need to do is let's go back to our transfers. You'll see here that the net cash value and the increase in net cash value years 2 through 7 have reduced. Why is that? Because I calculated how much they have to withdraw from their MEC in order to move it over, pay the taxes, and move over the 71.5. And that's where this took me, Rocky and I went through this for about an hour. And then I took about another hour or two to figure out how to create the spreadsheet. So all you'll need to do is walk through a few simple steps. But you'll be able to, in about 15 minutes, create a MEC illustration that includes moving the money over into the Patriot, including taxes and penalties. And you'll see at this point, when I'm presenting, I don't get into all the minutia. I just say, you'll notice here that these numbers are shrinking every year. They shrink pretty good at first, and they don't shrink by as much towards or they shrink more and more every year. And the reason for that is we're taking money out of this account to put it into this account, and we're considering any taxes you may have to pay when you take out the money. So what you'll see, one of these things that we found that is really cool about these contracts is that you'll see it's got something called a supplemental, where's it at? It's down here. Oh, I know what I did wrong here. Okay. We'll go through this in a minute. I forgot to check a box on the illustration, but you'll see that we're taking out 71.5 the first year. And the reason why is because at the end of this first year, I should say, which is the beginning of the second year, there is no gain, because remember, they put the money in and they lost a few to commissions and fees. They lost a few bucks. So when they take the money out in the second year, there is no gain. So there's a even Steven sort of thing. You take out 71.5 and you put it in. Year 3, there was a gain of 49.49. So the 40% of that is tacked on to the 71.5, and then they take that withdrawal, put the taxable amount, pay the tax on it, and move the 71.5 over, okay? And we're gonna walk through that in a moment, but let's just talk about what the benefit is to the client. In year 1, try to get this lined up a little better. There. Trying to get them lined up even Steven, but it's there. That's pretty good. So in year 1, they take the same $500,000 and they create 2 contracts. One's a tax me now, one's a tax me never. This contract has 1.5 million in death benefit from the beginning. This contract has 1.63. What do those 2 equal? $3.1 million in death benefit. He did that with $500,000. How much of a return or of an increase in estate value for every dollar is that? Pretty significant. And then as he moves the money over, obviously the death benefit here dwindles, but it grows here. So by the end of the 7-year migration, he's got 2.8 million. And then when he's done with, you'll notice here, I ran this as a reduced paid up contract where in year 8, he's putting $0 in. So that reason I do that is because I want to show them this is a one-time deal with an out-of-pocket money. From then, it's just moving money from one pocket to another. And by the 8th year, you've taken $500,000 and you've turned it into 1.537 million in estate value, and you now have $540,000. You've grown $40,000 for cash. Your estate value has grown, and now you never have to pay another dime into this contract. And you have this one at the end of 8 years, there's got $24,000 in the net cash value with a $100,000 death benefit. Just let that ride. Why would you do that? If they live in any state other than California, or I believe it's Delaware, the accelerated death benefit rider is going to be great. They're going to have a long-term care policy here and here. And if they just let this ride and they have this amount of estate and cash value available to them, and they never touch it, use this only as a last resort, look at the advantage to that. You're doing this with $500,000, and there's nowhere else you can take that $500,000, spend it all, and still have over $1 million to leave behind for your loved ones. That to me, tax-free, that to me is powerful. So I've presented this to 2 people, to one person I'm presenting this, and they're pretty much the same numbers. The other one is still waiting to get the consultation scheduled. The only question that the gentleman I presented this to had was, he said, so I have to pay taxes on the initial $500,000. I said, yeah, unfortunately, this is not a tax deductible plan, but it is a tax deferred plan. And there will be some taxes here, but as you can see, we've considered what those taxes would be as we move the money over from year to year. And you're still coming out, we've got $24,000 in this account. My suggestion is, just let it ride and use this money as your bank for your business. And all of these funds are available at any point in time, and these funds are available. The thing that I suggest to the people who are looking to do this is in their first year, they'll have around 60 grand available for from their Patriot, which is tax-free. So if you need $60,000 or less, borrow from this account first. If you need more, go go ahead and borrow from this account the additional you need. But when it comes to paying back the loans, pay this one back first and then pay this one back last. So when it comes to, if they started a plan, they have 60,000 in the first year to borrow. They got over 100,000 in this year, over 180,000 this year. Depending on how much available loan amount is in this account, if you need more, you borrow from this account and then the difference here, pay this one back first and then pay that one. Chris, I saw your hand go up. Go ahead. Chris,
Yeah, you said that your suggestion is for them to let it ride once they've moved the money over. What would the other option be, or other options be?
Oh, they could cash it out and take the 24,000, pay whatever tax they have to, and put that in their pocket. Or
And that would just
they could take it out.
that would just eliminate that policy. Then that policy would go away.
Yeah, if they took it out, or they could, take that out and move it into this policy, because you know what, year 8, they're not. I mean, if they've put in 71.5, if we go to, they could put in from year 8 plus, they could put $62,000 a year into this contract if they want to. That's just in PUAs. So they could continue to contribute in this contract 71.5 a year beyond this, but that's out of pocket. I mean, they may have it, and that's great. Continue to do that, and these numbers go off the charts. If you don't, this is a one-time investment, one-time payment. And it's just a matter of then, after you make that first payment, taking money out of this pocket and putting it into this pocket. I thought I heard another question. And so if that's whoever, was that Janina, I think? If not, if I was hearing things, which is not.
No, it wasn't me.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
No, it wasn't me. It
Oh,
was
okay.
nothing.
So, I am getting, my hearing is playing tricks on me these days. So this is a real powerful way to take large sums of money, move it into an environment that does a number of things. Number one, it really protects those funds from, the market. Number one, just think about, I have a client that was moving for, retirement money from their retirement plans into an annuity, one of the Marquis SP annuity. And then all of a sudden, all this crap around the world is happening. And now we're putting that on hold. It was a simple IRA rollover. But because the market conditions are what they are, we're going to hold off on it, because I don't want them to move the money and lose so much due to the market conditions. Hopefully that'll recover. What I did tell her was to contact, she has 3 different funds from 3 different employers. I said, move the funds when there is a favorable market condition into, if that family of funds has a money market account, move it into the money market account. And that will protect it from the equity problems that we're having today. But unfortunately, this happened too quickly. And she's at a point now where we're just going to wait, because I don't want her to experience a loss on the move. So hopefully in the next few weeks, things will recover and we won't have that problem. But that's the reason, one of the things that we need to be mindful of is the people we're talking with now. The market is a very scary place to be. And that's, advantage to us, because we know we're insulated from. I was just talking to a friend of mine earlier today, and we've done a little bit of business, and he's had his guy for years and years and years. And he said, yeah, one of my retirement accounts lost like $25,000. And I said, if you had listened to me a while ago, you wouldn't have lost that $25,000. Matter of fact, it'd be up by now. And you've lost, let's say if he lost 20%, that means in order for him to make up the loss, it's got to go up by like 30+% just to get back to where you were. I said, I'm not going to say I told you so, but I told you so. So, the market conditions now really are favorable for us, because we don't have the market vulnerabilities that most other plans do. Okay. So does this make sense? Do you have any other questions about, how you would present this to someone who has lump sums of money? You can go with just a simple MEC, makes total sense. But if you do a tax me now to tax me never, we're in a situation where at year 8, they've got $540,000, 1.5 million in death benefit versus in year 8 in the MEC, they have $658,000, but $158,000 is taxable. And, they have a $1.8 million death benefit, which is a little bit greater. So it's just a matter of this is tax me now versus this being tax me never. To me, this makes sense. Hey, you know what? Pretty well for both. Either transaction, there's good commissions to get paid. So, and we can feel good about it because we've reduced in this case, when I did the blend, this is a 90-10. I put 90% in the PUA and only 10 towards base. Why? Because they're only doing it over 7 years. And I want these numbers to be very good for them. We're going to make good money here and we're going to make good money there. And we can feel good that we did not, if you did a 70-30 by year 7, they're barely going to recover the money they put in. That's not very favorable. I want them to be totally reinvested, totally vested in their $500,000 by year 7. And this makes a lot of sense numbers wise. So yes, go ahead, Juan.
I noticed in the one on the left that the death benefit is constant. It's continually going down. The cash value is going up, but not as much as the death benefit is going down.
Yeah, that's because we're moving so much money every year out of this account via a withdrawal over to this account.
But I mean,
So
even after you finish, when you go down to the bottom of this page, you notice that the death penalty is coming down.
Because what's happening is that they're getting older and the cost of insurance is getting higher.
Okay.
So they're not putting any money into this.
Right.
What we're doing is year by year, they're buying less and less insurance. And so the death benefit is going to move down just a little bit. That's a good observation. But it's just because they're getting older and they're no longer making any contributions. That make sense?
Yes. But this is a whole life that the death benefit, I mean, is going down, or is this a term?
No, this is a single premium paid up life insurance policy. So
Right.
what you'll see is that as, if they reach age 100,
Mm-hmm.
there's barely anything in there, but they're more than
Right.
likely going to live to their 70s or 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I got to move the problem I see with Zoom is that I keep getting I wish I could just turn this thing off. Oh, there it is. No, that didn't do any good. By age 90,
Mm-hmm.
this is going to be reduced because the internal costs are going to be eating the policy up because they're not putting any more money into it, and they're still buying death benefit, but it's getting more expensive every year they age.
So would it be better for them to just keep transferring that money over into Patriot?
They could do that, once they get to year 8, like I said before. In year 8, they could take the $24,000 out as a withdrawal and put it here, or whatever tax, after they pay whatever taxes due on that amount. What they could do after that is go on vacation, buy a car, it's up to them. One of the reasons I think letting this ride would be a good idea is because it provides, if they're in a state that provides the accelerated death benefit rider, where are we at here? Oh, this is the supplemental. I'm going to continue to go down. Is this ADBR? There it is. Looking at like in their 80s, you've got lump sums available in the tens of thousands of dollars should something, God forbid, go wrong. I mean, let's face it, the older we get, the more likely that we could get a chronic illness or some type of medical problem. And this is a long-term care type of policy as well. So they've gotten the advantage of the $500,000. They've moved it over here, and they've got all kinds of tax-free advantages to money that continues to grow and never looks back. And this also provides the accelerated death benefit rider as well. So it's like having 2 long-term care policies, and they can let this ride or they can take it out. It's up to them. But the alternative is nowhere near as advantageous as what we're talking about here. We're saying after you've spent your $500,000, you got 24,000 left. What do you want to do with it? And we're saying you could put it here, let it ride, have the death benefit and whatnot, along with the LTC, long-term care type policy attached to it for nothing. And because they're not spending any more money, and or move it here. It does decrease because they're getting older, but the decrease is is understandable from the standpoint that they're getting older, but given their alternative or the alternative strategies that they can employ, I think this personally. I mean, I have some investments that might be doing pretty well over the next couple of years, and I got my eye on this big time because it just makes so much sense. So I think, Juan, did you have a question?
Yeah, yes, Tony, real quick. What is the minimum amount recommended for doing something like this? Because I know, I mean, it's $500,000, but does it work with less amount, like
Sure.
like even below 100,000?
Yeah, I mean, if you've got if you got $100,000, you just go to the calculator and put in the 100,000 here, and then you wind up with 71, or you wind up with the Patriot premium is going to be about 14,250. This is going to be about $85,700. So, just basically use this as an estimator to see what these amounts would be. And you use these amounts to create the two different illustrations. And you'll use the values here where you see right now it's all the same because we don't have dollar amounts in these fields. Once you fill in the gains from the supplemental report, which I'll show you in a moment, once you fill in those, then it'll tell you exactly how to work this. This is bothering me. I'm gonna have to figure that out why this should be 7 times this dollar amount up here. So I don't know why. What the heck is that? I don't know what I must have, when I was working on the spreadsheet earlier, I must have accidentally. Yeah, this should be $500,000 and $500,500. So this gives you an idea of what the total transfer amount is. And, the extra $500 would probably come out of here somewhere. But this gives you, the hardest part about this process is what you'll see. How do you calculate what they need to withdraw from their MEC each year and have that withdrawal pay the taxes that year? So that's, to me, the big thing. Because when I first learned about this, my question always was, well, how do you know that it's going to make sense with the MEC? We're just taking, we're just kind of assuming that doing that is going to work. How do we know for sure? And so Rocky and I, when I first ran into an individual that really wanted to know about this, I said, people who have this kind of money, they know, they don't like to see estimates. They want to have a pretty accurate depiction of what's going to happen. And that's what led to us, finding out exactly how to do that, which I'll show you in just a few moments. And that process was kind of tedious. So I took that process and I put it into a spreadsheet so that you can find out what these numbers are. And, from year one, there is no withdrawal from the MEC because you took in this case, the $100,000, and you used the MEC amount. And well, here we look here. You don't start the MEC with the full amount. You only start the MEC with 6/7 of the amount that you put into this field. So, okay, we got 2 people raising their hands. Go ahead. It doesn't tell me who's who. So it's kind of like Family Feud. Whoever hits the buzzer first goes first.
I think Mark was next.
Okay, Mark, go ahead. Mark, you there? Okay, Mark, go ahead. We can't, you're not muted, but we can't hear you. Let's see. I want to unmute you. So you should be.
He just went back on. It went off for a minute, then came back on again. So try it again.
All right, Mark, we want to hear from you. Maybe you're having, hopefully you're not having the same type of microphone problems. I was having camera problems earlier. All right, so let's see if we don't. There was another hand that was raised. We could probably go there. Hopefully Mark will get the problems with his microphone worked out.
Yeah, Mark was saying he's having issues. The other hand, I think you might be seeing is Juan's. I think maybe you just left it up.
Oh, okay. All right. So let's go back to how, you know, the Patriot is very simple to create. You just, once you know what the Patriot amount, and let's go here, we go back to the 500,000, just to continue working with these numbers. Okay. We're going to be working with I see what I did wrong. I see what I did wrong. The MEC amount here, that is going to be $428,500. And the Patriot premium is $71,500. That's why that was so big. I put the values in wrong. So what you do is you take the lump sum, put it here. This will give you what we'll divide that lump sum by 7, and then that, divide this number by 7 will be what you see here. And then 6 times that amount is going to be what you see here. What I do is I just simply pick round numbers. 42 or 420, 428, 500. And 71,500. This equals the $500,000. Okay, but when you do the 7 times the Patriot premium, you're going to be a little bit over. So you just figure out what numbers you think are going to work best, and then you take these two values. You use this and the premium as the Patriot, and I'll walk you through that. That's very quick. So let's go ahead and. Let's go ahead and do that.
These tools, are you sending us the tool?
Oh, the spreadsheet is going to be, it'll be you'll have access to it. It'll be emailed to you, and it will also be available when you log into the Agent Academy. You'll be able to simply go in and watch, where this video for the archive. It'll be a little download button beneath there as well.
But Tony, why isn't it showing anything being populated in those other 7 columns from years 1?
Right here, these
Yes.
columns. Because
right.
I'm going to show you how to work these numbers.
Okay.
It gets to be a little tricky, and what the spreadsheet does is it makes it real simple. But what you have to do is you have to say, okay, in year 1, because when you start the contract, year 1 is the beginning of the year. You start it with the you're starting your Patriot with the 71.5 or whatever this number is, and you're starting your MEC with this number. At the end of year 1, you will not have any gain. So you'll see how this works in just a moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually populate these numbers with values we get from the Lafayette software. And year by year, we're going to be able to calculate in a fairly good, very good ballpark number what the withdrawal for each year will need to be, and still be able to pay the taxes like what we did in this, what I did here, which, let's make this a little bigger because it gets a little hard to see. Each year we're taking out different amounts because the growth in the account is different. And I want to make sure that the individual that I'm pitching this to, if this is me, I don't want any surprises in year 4, right? I don't want to find out, well, wait a minute, now I'm screwed because I didn't know I wasn't taking out enough for taxes. And so I put together the spreadsheet so that you can add the values that we're going to see in year 2. There's going to be a taxable gain, and we're going to add that. And then we're going to, it's kind of like a step-by-step process. We'll go through it real quick and we'll see how that works. Okay, so let's start a new case. We know that the Patriot's going to be pretty simple, right? I don't think anyone's going to need to see me do that. So let's just say this is mech guy. Okay, he's 47. Male, obvious, male. And the naming convention would be guy underscore M underscore. What was my value for the mech? According to the spreadsheet, $428,500. So I'm going to say $428,500 underscore Liberty. And he's in Arizona, and we're talking whole life. We're going to find the available products. We're going to select Liberty. Okay, what we're going to do, we don't need to do any solves, right? What we do need to go is go into premium, and we need to change this number to $25,000. Doing this basically is minimizing the amount he's going to pay towards his base. Just like a regular Patriot, there's a base and then there's PUA. When it comes to a mech, we want to put $25,000 here because that is the minimum amount you need to start the contract. Once you've done that, you're going to come down to riders, and you're going to put in a single premium PUA. You're going to put in $428,500 here, and you're going to click on this total first year outlay. And this is important because if you don't click this, what's going to happen is it's going to take the 428 here, that the value you've put here, it's going to calculate how much the base 25,000 is going to cost and add those two together. We don't want to do that. We don't want any more out-of-pocket expense. We're going to simply say, this is all we're putting in. And from here, you can click View Illustration. We know it's a mech. This would be the illustration for that contract if we did nothing else, okay? And this is what we would usually run, and we would say, yeah, if you take the money out, there'll be enough there. Well, how do you know? So in my opinion, this is not enough for someone who is going to actually, consider this type of strategy. I'm going to close this down. So when you've done that, before you click View Illustration, come down to Loans and Withdrawals. Click on that. We're going to bring this to another page. What we want to do is we are going to withdraw in year 2, $71,500. What happened? Let's try it again. $71,500. However, we're not going to withdraw that amount in year 3. We're going to click this, zero it out, and we're going to, now what we want to do is see now this, remember, year 1, they both start at the same time. Year 2, this is what we're going to withdraw in the beginning of the year. So there was no gain at the beginning of year 2. So since there's no gain at the beginning of year 2, we don't have to worry about taxes. So we're going to withdraw this amount. Before we go any further, you want to scroll down, and this is where I forget, you don't want to forget this little button here, allow withdrawals greater than basis, because we don't want to turn anything into a loan here. We want to make sure that we're taking the basis out. We don't matter. It doesn't matter. It's already a mech, right? So you want to make sure that's checked moving forward. Now, this is where, pay close attention. This is where the step-by-step process goes in. We need to figure out how much are we going to withdraw in years 3 through 7. And to do that, what we'll do here, once we've added all the values, we're working in this loans and withdrawals tab. We've checked this button down here. Oh, this drives me nuts the way it keeps going, bouncing around. We're not going to have a withdrawal at the beginning of year 1 because we've already started the Patriot with the money that was available. The beginning of year 2, this is what we're going to take out. What we need to do at this point is click on View Illustration. And yeah, we know it's a mech. We want to view the illustration. What you want to do is come to the supplemental, it's towards the bottom, the supplemental illustration, because this is giving us numbers. Now notice these numbers here. This is at the end of year 2. If you took out 71.5 in the beginning of year 2, then you're going to have a taxable gain at the end of year 2. So when you take the money out at the beginning of year 3, you're going to have to pay the gain from the end of year 2. Does that make sense? It's a little tricky, but we're keeping in mind that we're dealing with a window of about 15 to 30 days. The end of the year, we already started year 1 with the maximum amount. We didn't need to worry about taking anything out because we already did the math on how to start both contracts at the same time. The Patriots premium is going to be due at the beginning of year 2. Well, the beginning of year 2, what was the end of year gain for year 1? 0. So we don't need to worry about how much extra above and beyond the minimum Patriot premium in question would be. But the end of year 2, there is a gain of $4,949. So we go to our spreadsheet and we type in 49.49 and hit enter. So year 3's, now look at here, a taxable gain, end of year 2, beginning of year 2, beginning of year 3. We need to now, if we go back to our illustration, we need to find out what value is going to be placed here. According to the spreadsheet, that value is going to be $73,479. 73,479. Now we're not taking that out in year 4. We want to zero this out. Okay. Now let's take a look at the supplemental report. No, this is the wrong one. Which one are we looking at? I got so many windows open in Zoom. The way when you're doing a screen share, it's a little hard to figure out exactly where is this it? Yeah, here we go. We've got in year 3, we've got a $20,909 gain, but that's if we didn't take anything out in year at all before this gain was calculated. So we're going to put a value in here, which we just did. When we put this value in here, it's going to change that number. So now we'll go ahead and click on View Illustration. You have to do this for each year so that the more accurate gain is being calculated in the supplemental illustration. So now what we need to do is we scroll all the way down to the supplemental, here it is, supplemental illustration. When we didn't take this money out, this gain was over $20,000, but since we took this money out, the gain is less. So now this $17,660 has to be put here. $17,660. This now gives us how much we have to take out in year 4. Beginning of year 4, which is going to calculate and include the gain at the end of year 3. So the 76,584 is what we put here. 76,584. That's for year 4. We're not going to calculate year 5 with that amount. There we go. So now we're going year by year. You see how I'm doing this? We now go up and hit view illustration. What we're after is the taxable gain for the end of that year, so we know how much tax we have to pay for the withdrawal in the beginning of the previous year. So here we go again. Scroll down to the supplemental illustration. Now the taxable gain at the end of year 4 is $27,495. We have to figure out how much, basically 40% of that. Oh, no, that's not true, because this is if we didn't take money out previously. So what the spreadsheet's doing is it's taking out it's calculating what 40% is of the difference between these two values. It's a little tricky. That's why I'd rather just have a spreadsheet that does it for you and you don't have to worry about it. Year 4, we have to put in 27,495. And now that gives us year 5's withdrawal amount. You'll notice it goes up and starts to come down because the withdrawal amount, the tax burden is becoming less and less because we've been taking money out every year. So $75,434 is what goes here. $75,434. Zero this out. We're almost done. We need 2 more values that are going to include how much we have to pay, or how much the client would have to pay in taxes. So we go back, hit the view illustration. And we'll go back to the supplemental report, supplemental illustration. And what we're looking for in the supplemental illustration is the taxable gain that's occurred at the end of year 5. I think that's this one here. No, let's close this down. We'll close that down. I've got so many windows open, it's just a little hectic. No, I know what it is. It's this one. We scroll down to the supplemental illustration again. And now at the end of year 5, our gain is $34,412 after that was paid the previous year. So now we go in and we put in this $34,412. And for year 6, we need to take out 74. We need to put a withdrawal in for this amount, 74,266. Now we need 1 more withdrawal for year number 7. So for that, we create another illustration and we look at the taxable gain at the end of year 6, and it will give us the last value for year 7's withdrawal. So at the end of year 6, considering all the withdrawals from the previous years, the gain is $38,355. So we go back to our spreadsheet. And let's close this window down. It's from a previous version. I think this is it. Yeah. So at the end of year 6, the gain is $38,355. $38,355. Hit enter. And now we've got year 7's withdrawal, which is the $73,077. $73,077. We zero out year 8's amount. And then when we've got years 1 through 7 calculated, when you click on view illustration, this will be the illustration that will be the one that provides the accurate amounts and what's more important, what the illustration would look like over the 7 years that the individual would be withdrawing the money from the account. This is where we get the values we were looking at before. You have 1.5 million, and then it goes down to where it's 24,000 and change, and they can do whatever they want in year 8, but they have effectively taken from the beginning of the contract that you've created, both contracts, they've effectively taken $500,000 and then moved that over into the Patriot. To create the Patriot, let's just go back into the software. To create the Patriot is very simple. Just go back to your cases, start a new case. Call this guy again, he's Mech guy, he's 47. This is something you're going to want to watch a couple times. Don't think you're going to be able to watch this one training here like you're doing now and say you got it. You're going to want to watch and see the logic. It took me a while, but once you've got the logic down, it's pretty simple. Guy, whoops.
Hey, Anthony, while you're filling that in, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
2 parts. One is, it's going to seem like maybe off topic, but it's not. Are you going to make any more videos? And then 2, can you do a video that targets higher income things for this?
Actually, yeah, the answer to both questions is yes, I'm going to be making more videos. The next video I'm going to be doing is going to be a video for the buy term invest the rest ripoff. It's something I've been wanting to do for a while. And I do have a video that will basically show people not what we're doing here, but showing people how they could take large sums of money and create between 50 to 500% increase of, dollar estate value sort of thing. So yeah, absolutely.
That's what I'm thinking is opening up, that will open up the conversation for the larger amounts of money.
Yeah, absolutely. Because this is too powerful of a strategy to not let, to get attention, especially now. I mean, I've always had a little bit of a, I don't know how this is going to work, because being a numbers guy, I need to know when the guy's taking the money out every year to move it over. How do we know what's happening in the MEC policy? How do we know it's not going to implode? How do we know it's not going to, and I started playing with numbers before Rocky pointed me in this direction, and it was imploding in year 5 and 6. And I was like, well, gosh, I don't want to screw anybody over and put them in in 2 contracts. So yeah, I get happy because I've made a decent chunk of change, but I don't want this person coming back. And I told Rocky, I said, I don't want to have to put a claim against my errors and omissions insurance. Okay. So let's make sure this works. And that's what, led to us going through this step by step. And when it comes to taking the $71,500, it's real simple to create the illustration. I like to start by going into riders so that I could check the level premium paid up addition rider and the Marcy button. Premium, I'm going to come here. I'm not going to change the payment mode because it's annual, but I am going to change this. I'm going to click the switch to reduce paid up in year 7. The reason I'm going to do this is I don't want to show an illustration that the guy sees putting more money in. I will tell him he could put more money in if he would like to know what that would be. Actually, I run the illustrations both ways. So I run it without the paid up, reduced paid up, and then with. So I have the with without the reduced paid up handy in case he wants to see it. So, I mean, that just takes a couple clicks of a button, and then you save it into the right folder. But this is going to show your prospect one time. You put the 500,000, 250,000, 100,000, whatever the numbers are, you put those numbers in one time, and this is what you get in 7 years. And now once we've done that, we'll come up to the blend, or excuse me, the solves where we use the blend. And remember, this is $71,500. Like I said, I'm putting the minimum and base that we can. And then 7-year term to avoid MEC, and click view illustration, and you're done. That's all. I know that's all it takes. But it really, what I love about this is that it now gives us confidence that when we present these two side by side, we're presenting it in such a way that is able to explain, listen, this is a MEC contract. This is not a tax me never contract. But the question is, will it pay for itself, including the taxes, so you can migrate those funds over from tax me now to tax me never? And now, given the numbers and statistics, it's going to work. When you have, you know, this, we've seen this. This is pretty straightforward. You know how this works. We're not going to need to go over this. But again, what you'll see is that the money is transferred over in year 8. They're putting $0 in. Chris, I see in a hand. I'll get you in just a second. The part that is really that's really necessary is going through this year by year to get the value, the taxable gain at the end of year 2. You go into the withdrawals thing, update it like we did, and just go back and forth 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and you'll have these dollar amounts. Because year 1 we don't have a withdrawal. Year 2 we know what it is because there's no taxable gain. So again, this is the beginning of year 2 here and the end of year 2 here. So we put these dollar amounts in, and then this gives us what the withdrawal is for each year, considering and including any taxes or penalties. If the person is going to be, if they're already 59.5, then you just zero this out. And when you work the numbers, there's going to be is not as big a penalty. Now you can't just go in there and change that year, because these numbers will be changing year by year, as you notice, going back and forth. You need to make sure that these values are put in correctly to begin with, because it is a little cumbersome, but at least you'll know with confidence. Why would you go through the extra 15 to 30 minutes to do this? Number one, it's a great plan for the client. As you can see, it's just absolutely a powerful plan. Number two, you're going to make a nice little chunk of change, because I think we get a 2% commission on the amount that goes into the MEC. That's not bad. And you know what you get on the Patriot, this is not bad either. Even though we're reducing the base to 10%, the numbers look great. And 10% of $5,000 is $71,500 is going to be, 55% of $7,150. That's thousands of dollars. And you've earned it, because this little strategy, they're never going to find it anywhere else. And we've definitely earned the money, and we've definitely done a great service for our client. Chris, go ahead. You had a question.
So if we go back to the single premium illustration, and you just said, you're going to have to forgive my ignorance here a little bit. So we're going to pull out $71,500, and then
Let me see
as you get to it,
this is the one. Yeah.
that's not the. Yeah, there's the supplemental one.
Yeah. I think this is probably one from when we did up to year 4, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, well, no, there was the one that had the net cash value, had some negative numbers in the net cash value. Is that,
that's going to be up here, Chris. That's going to be in the tabular detail. This is the what we were looking at was a supplemental. The tabular detail is the increase in net cash value. It's not the net, it's the increase is less because we've taken money out. Again, look, we've taken the money out. So at the end of the year, this is the increase in net cash value at the end of the year. So in the beginning of the year, we took out $71,500. It grew and recovered some of that, but not all of it. So we had a negative amount, but the basis clock, it's once you make a withdrawal, then the basis is reset from that year. So each year, that's why we got to go through the year by year thing to calculate the taxable liability each year.
So, and maybe I just missed it. So when on the second year, when they pull out 71,500,
Mm-hmm.
do we find where the penalties added and the taxes added, and to where what's the total amount that they pulled out for that year to get 71,500 in?
Yeah, and here's in the supplemental. That's the supplemental illustration. Okay.
Okay.
What you'll want to go is you'll just want to keep looking at this as we're going back and forth between this, the illustration and the spreadsheet. So you're looking at what you're looking for is the number at the end of year 2, at the end of year 3, and see now if you look at this 37,717 at the end of year 5, that's if there was no money taken out in the beginning of year 5. So that's why we have to go back and forth, because these numbers reduce once, once you've taken money out, they'll be reduced because the amount that was taken out is no longer inside to gain. So we're taking the money out at the beginning of the year, and that's why the gain, when you're seeing these numbers up here, are the increase is less every year because we've taken money out. It keeps growing, but doesn't grow that fast because we've taken so much out. We're taking, we're taking the $71,500 plus any amount that needs to be paid on the tax from the previous gain, the year and the gain from the previous year.
So everything is that they're paying year by year is coming out of this policy.
Yes.
The base, the penalty, and the taxes.
Penalty,
it's not
taxes,
coming
and the premium dollars.
It's not going out of their pocket or another bank account or anything like that. It's all coming out of the single premium account.
Exactly. And that's what I wanted to be sure of, because like I said, when we just look at the MEC and we say, oh, you'll just take the money out each year, so these numbers will be different. My question was, how different will they be? And how will we know that it's not going to be a situation where in year 6, all of a sudden there's not enough money to take out? How do we know that? We're just assuming it will grow, and we're just assuming it'll look good. But in the case here, what we're seeing is even in the, let's see. No, it's only shown in the non-guaranteed side. But what we're seeing is that even though they got to pay a penalty, they got to pay a tax, there's still going to be enough money and growth in the MEC to pay all of it and have some left over. And they have migrated from tax me now to tax me never. And so, yeah, that's why this process is in place. It's basically, you start with your I'm in the Patriot here. So let me go back. What you're going to do, just to kind of review in the illustration, you're going to go to loans and withdrawals, and the first year we don't take anything out because we're just starting it. And because at the end of the first year, we have gotten a situation where there was no gain, we don't need to pay taxes in the beginning of year 2. So we just take out the amount that needs to go into the Patriot. Then at the end of year 2, after we've taken this, we know there's going to be a gain. That's where we go, and that's why we now get that gain for it just for that year, which is the 49.49. We go to the spreadsheet, we put that here, and then we come away with year 3's amount. That's 73,479. That's where this goes. We put that in, and then we run the illustration again, because we want to know at the end of year 3, when we took this much out of the beginning, it's growing. What's the taxable gain at the end of year 3? And so we just keep going back and forth between this and the spreadsheet. And what we're looking for is the taxable gain in each year for 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And when we put those dollars in after we've gone back and made the adjustment to put the withdrawal in here, zero out anything below that, run the illustration, and go back and forth 6 times. From that point forward, we know that we have an illustration that's considering what it's going to cost from this account, from this policy, to pay the $71,500 annual premium for the Patriot. So that's why these amounts are different than that, because we're saying, hey, you know what? We're going to pay the tax and any penalties, and we're still going to come out ahead. And that's what, to me, when I saw this, that's when I was just like, oh my gosh, this is such a powerful plan, because everything is coming out of the Patriot, the Liberty, including any taxes and penalties that the client may owe. So they never have a surprise in years 6 or 7 where all of a sudden, well, there's not enough, or they got to pay taxes out of pocket. That makes sense? I hope it does. I know it's a lot to wrap your brain around, and you might have to watch this a couple of times to really let it sink in. And I would encourage you to go into the software and try a few. Use the spreadsheet. Here's a perfect example. Juan, how much do you think the individual has if that's $100,000? Oops. Okay, so that means that the estimated MEC amount is $85,700. So we'll put 85,000. And then this is 14,300. Okay. You'll take these dollars, these amounts, and start the process from there. Working with this 85.7, you build go into the riders. This will be 85,700. Make sure that's checked. Oh, we don't want to go into premium. Make sure that the premium has the minimum amount of insurance required. And with loans and withdrawals, we'll just zero that out. And we'll view the illustration. Oh, darn it. I didn't want to do that. One step ahead. And then we'll wrap it up because we're already at our 90 minutes. Let's just go ahead and close this down. We don't need to see that. We know year 1, there's no withdrawal. Year 2, what's the withdrawal going to be? Year 2 is going to be a Patriot premium of $14,300. So we go here, put in $14,300, zero out year 3's deduction because we don't know what that'll, or withdrawal because we don't know what that will be. And then we hit the premium, the view illustration. And that will give us, when we go to the supplemental illustration, that will give us year 2's taxable gain. Scroll it down. Tabular detail. We want to see the supplemental illustration. Here it is. Year 2's taxable gain is $436. So what you do, we're going to come here. We're going to zero out all of these values. And we're going to put $436. 436. Hit enter. That means year 3, we're going to make a withdrawal of $14,474.
Tony, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I had a question. That means that
I heard you, but now I can't hear you, Jenna.
can you hear me now?
There you go. It's like the old Verizon commercials.
You don't start the Patriot at the same time that you start the Liberty. You start the Liberty, and then at the end of the year, you start the Patriot? Or
Nope.
the next
We're going to
year?
start them both at the exact same time, both contracts.
Okay,
So-
so then how are you putting in the 500,000 in the Liberty and also putting in the 71.5 in the Patriot? When
Yeah,
it's
that's why we have this little spreadsheet here. We're putting, like in this case, we're not talking about 500,000. We're talking about 100,000. That's what we're starting with. So you put that in, and what the calculator is going to do is it's going to say, basically, you're going to take 1/7 of the amount that's here, and we're going to use that to start the Patriot. And then we're going to take 6/7 of the amount and put it here. So that's why in the case of the $100,000, you're starting a MEC with 85,700,
Mhm.
and you're starting a Patriot with 14,300.
Okay.
So you start both at the same time, but not with, so you do a little math to say, okay, well, we got to start the MEC with a little bit less than the total amount because we're starting the Patriot as well at the same time. That's how
Right,
this works.
That's what I was wondering.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
I know you're going to want to, this is like learning about the private family bank for the first time. It's so new and so almost overwhelming that if you watch the video a few times, you'll see where the math comes into play. For this, really what we're trying to do is simply make sure that the client is in the best possible position, and we're not creating a scenario where several years down the line, there's some unpleasant surprise. So the calculator helps you figure out what the withdrawals need to be. And once you get the basis started, then you know, okay, now what we're looking at is what do we need to withdraw in year 4? What is it telling us? We got years 1, 2, and 3. What we haven't done is we haven't run the illustration. So you simply run the illustration. What we need is now what's the taxable gain at the end of year 3, right? Because at the beginning of year 4, you're going to have to pay it. So we want to know how much to take out of the MEC and pay the taxes and the premium at the same time. So we simply come all the way down again to the supplemental. We now know in year 3 that this gain is 29.27. 29.27. Hit enter. Okay, so that means in the beginning of year 4, that's going to give us how much we got to put in here. Zero that out. What was that dollar amount? 15,296. Click OK. Got to zero out year 5 because we want to let, these are the only ones we're taking up to this point. View the illustration again and just rinse and repeat. You keep looking at how to fill in the taxable gain for year 4, and that will give you the withdrawal that you need to take in year 5. Right now, we don't know what that is, but we're going to find out in a second. Come here to the taxable gain, and you know which taxable gain to look for. You're looking at, okay, we took this is the withdrawal we did last. We did this for year 4. So 4841 needs to be put in the taxable gain column for year 4, 4841. Now that gives me the amount that I need to take for year 5. Because we already at the 15,296, right? That was here. So now we go to 15,065. 15,065. And we now run the illustration one more time. We're going to finish this up and then I'll let you guys get back to your Tuesday night because we're running a little late. But watching this a couple of times, you'll see, okay, this starts to make a little sense. If you have people with money, now you can with great confidence know that this strategy is better than anything else they could work with. So now we know, given these yearly withdrawals, that in the end of year 5, this is going to be their taxable gain they'll have to pay in year 6 because they're going to take it out in the beginning of year 6. 6168. 6168. Hit enter. That gives me my withdrawal for year 6. A year 6 withdrawal. You never go anything beyond what you're going to want to know when you're looking at the spreadsheet is if you've got these values filled in accurately, year 6's withdrawal, see this is total withdrawal, is going to be accurate because this number is blank. This cell is blank. So now 14,830, actually if you put in the point 14,830.8, let's do that this time. I haven't been doing that, but if you put in 14,830.8, it'll round up to 14,831. Right? It will in the supplemental. So we need to zero the duplicate out. Go back to this. We click view illustration. We got one more to do. And then we'll wrap it up. Okay. One thing I just realized I didn't do, we're recording this, but it'll be a little bit of a, didn't stream it. So, but that's okay. Now we scroll down, supplemental. At the end of year 6, our gain is 6898. 6898. Hit enter. Year 7's withdrawals 14,592. 14, whoops. What was that number? 792? 14, not 592. 592. Come down to year 8, zero that out. Now we've got all the withdrawals needed for the first 7 years. When we hit the view illustration, this is the illustration that we save and present with the strategy. And we're done. I know it's a lot. I know this is something you'd never seen before, but trust me, I did this 2 or 3 times. And now if you do this a couple times, if you just take dollar amounts, use this spreadsheet to verify, to come up with these values, you'll find if the strategy works. For like Juan, when you said, what if you had $50,000 or less than 100? One of the other options is to just put all of the money into the Patriot. And in this case, what the client could do is they could take $100,000 and put it into the Patriot and put the 85,700 or whatever would be left over. They could put that into the premium hold account, and that would work fine as well. The only difference is if something happened to them between years 1 and 7, their only death benefit is going to be the Patriot, and they can't access those funds without having some issues. So this is a great alternative, which gives them access to the funds from a lending perspective if they need them, and also increases the value by, like we sort of noticed here, 400 to 500%. So it's just a great way to consider the options we have available as for folks who have large amounts of money. The reason I did this for the folks, the two gentlemen I'm talking was they own construction companies, and they might need to have access to the loan mechanism inside the MEC as well, because they work on big projects, they pay out big time. So it's just a matter of, knowing what their options are. All right, folks, so that's going to wrap it up for tonight. We're already 10 minutes over. Thank you for sticking with me. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions about this, please just go ahead and email me, let me know. Do me a favor though, watch the video once or twice and see if those questions don't get answered as you're watching them. Because as we all know, when you're learning something for the first time, your brain starts to go in a couple different directions and miss something. It's like watching a comedy. It's a comedy of horror sometimes with us, but just watch it and do what you can to get wrap your brain around this. And if you have any questions, just simply let me know. So, all right. That's going to do it for the night. I hope you guys, just before I let you go, does this give you a certain extra vote of like, hey, this is another great tool in your quiver of financial tools? I hope it does. I sure think it does, because I'm really excited about it.
It does for me, because before, when I saw MEC, it's just like, nope, I don't want MEC. Now I know that that you can work with the MEC.
Yeah.
And how to work with it.
Yeah, before this, Janina, all I thought this was a way for us to make an extra commission. And, don't get me wrong, I like making money like anybody else, but I don't like making it unless I can feel real good about it. Mm-hmm. This makes me feel real good because we're really helping people. This is, for people with this kind of money, it's a real plus for them. So that makes me feel that much better.
Mhm.
Awesome. All right, folks, I'm going to let you go. Happy St. Patty's Day again. Stay safe. Do your social distancing. And, I see Mark is saying to everyone, holding the space bar will temporarily unmute you. So if you want to talk, just hold the space bar down while you're muted. And that way you're not left unmuted. That's a good point. Thank you, Mark. We're learning as we go. Awesome. All right, folks, you guys have a great week. Let me know if you have any questions and stay safe. Again, like I said, do your social distancing and stock up on toilet paper and everything else while you can. And we'll see you next week. God bless.
All right. See you.